Hello, adventurers. My name's Tyler.
And I'm Richard.
On today's episode, we're talking about Critical Role's A Daggerheart Critmas story. Welcome to True Strike.
Howdy, folks, and welcome back to the show.
Howdy.
We're talking Critmas, specifically Daggerheart Critmas.
Yeah, finally. Maybe the beginning of many Daggerheart Critmases to come.
Yeah, I think it's the beginning of Daggerheart period to come.
Yeah.
No,
D&D, you're out. No.
I actually subscribed to Beacons to be able to watch this.
Beacon, you say?
Yeah, Beacon.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, they put it up on YouTube and then immediately took it down.
That was
right?
like a streaming situation.
It was a streaming situation, yeah. And then immediately took it down, and then we were going to have to wait in order to be able to...
Wait a few days.
Yeah, to watch it. I didn't want to wait.
I know you didn't.
So I had to sign up for Beacon.
To be fair, you had watched it before it was even available on YouTube, so you did the thing.
I did the thing.
Yeah. And then luckily, I was also able to watch it on your account.
Yeah.
And finished it right about the time it was coming out on YouTube.
Yeah, so right about that time. But it was, we knew it was coming because we had already, well, obviously we knew it was coming because they were doing everything, but they
had done it at PAX Unplugged.
Yeah, they had done it at PAX Unplugged. Before they even did this, they had done a special on basically creating characters beforehand, which they didn't really stick to what they made that day.
There's always going to be some changes and adjustments. They're making stuff up on the fly, and it's actually because this happens anytime they you know, or do these like character creation episodes. I'm always interested to see what sticks and what's changed between then and, you know, the actual game.
Well, it's funny because, you know, like if you watch that video, it was kind of funny some of the stuff that they were talking about doing in there. And Matt's just like, please, no.
Yeah, right.
No, stop.
I know we're recording this, but...
So I can't say no. I'm going to say, sure.
Right.
And then a big exaggerated wink.
Yep.
It definitely did not come to pass. Because they were doing like some crazy stuff. Like Ashley wanted to be changing into instruments.
Yes.
As wild shapes. Mm-hmm. And we were like, how does that even work? And Marisha wanted her skateboard to be a beast companion.
Yeah. Which, hey, you know, they could have made that one work.
They could have made that work, yeah.
It's at the end of the day, this is one of those situations where the GM didn't want to give everything away out the jump, at least during character creation, but had to talk to them outside of the game and outside of the recording and be like, this is what I'm going for.
Yeah.
This is the vibe.
This is the vibe that I'm going for.
I'm going to need to wall you in, not a negative way, but wall you in, railroad a little bit. So that we can get, you know, we've got a one shot. We have to get from A to B. Please, just let me confine you slightly.
Yeah. And we should preface this with, if you haven't watched this yet, and you don't want to be spoilered on
spoilers
things,
episode.
Don't listen, because we're obviously talking about the plot and things that happened in this, as well as the game in general.
Yes.
But there's going to inevitably be spoilers. We're not going to like recite the entire one shot from start to finish.
More of just thoughts, genuine things. We wanted to big thing. We were like really like, okay, they're using the most important part to us was the final, air quotes, you know, the final rule set for Daggerheart. And we're like, all right, time to put on our analysis goggles and figure out exactly what's new in this. And it really seems to be all the things, you know, the culmination of playtest.
Yes.
And kind of just where we ended up.
Sort of anticlimactic in that respect.
Yeah. I'm sure there's something
okay.
I'm sure there's something we missed, right? If we're like, okay, well, they use this domain ability, right? And, it used to be, you know, 1d10, but now it's 2d6 or something like that. Like, I'm sure if we really break out the fine tooth and comb and everything and, you know, fine tooth. Yeah. The two separate things.
Works. The fine tooth and the comb.
And the comb.
That's how you know it's serious.
On you.
Use them both.
Dual wielding. Then we could find something right there. But at the end of the day, nothing really stuck out to us as being like, whoa, that's an incredibly new mechanic.
Groundbreaking new mechanics or anything.
Yeah. So we're just going to talk about how we had a fun time.
Yeah, no, it was cool. Actually, there is something that I don't know that we did touch on in any of the play tests, and we didn't touch on it when we played, was the mechanic for like group stealth checks and stuff like that. Which was,
we covered it so many times I don't remember.
Which was interesting because I didn't recall ever actually really covering like group handled
and
checks
how that works
and how that works,
advantage disadvantage.
Which I did like that, where you know, like you have somebody leading the charge, and then based on who passes checks and who doesn't pass checks to add pluses or minuses to the grand total to try and pass the DC, which was pretty cool.
Yes. So essentially, and then how that breaks down is in Daggerheart. Anytime a group is doing something, this is just the long-winded version of what you just said. Yes, everyone gets to make the roll, but one person is going to decide whether you pass or fail. And they are the leader, though usually the one who initiates, the objective or something. And everyone else gets to do it. If you roll with hope or fear, you don't get hope in this instance. The GM doesn't get fear. Yeah. There's no positives or consequences. A crit is just a success. Like there's nothing like wild about if you're just one of the supporting characters in this sort of moment. But it's either a +1 for each success or a -1 for every failure to that final roll. And that final roll is what really, really matters here.
Yeah.
And it just kind of streamlines the whole situation of group checks.
Yeah, no, it was really cool. And like I said, I hadn't really, we hadn't encountered it when we played. And it's not a rule that I actually remember us even talking about. So seeing it in play was like, oh, that's a really cool way to handle a stealth check. And it's very clean and it just worked really well. So that did stand out to me when I was listening to it. Outside of that, most of the other mechanics that we saw were things that we already knew or skins of things that we already knew.
It's nice seeing, every time we see Matt run one of these games, really hammers in just how fear is used as a resource. And I know a lot of people doing playtest have mentioned like, well, I ended up with just a ton of fear left over at the end of a game, and the fights felt pretty anticlimactic, and like when am I really using this for outside of some abilities? And he constantly was like dropping in like, you know what, and I'm gonna turn the spotlight back to me. I'm gonna go ahead and go using some fear, even though normally the PCs would have another turn.
Yeah.
And he's like, nope, you know what, I think you've had enough. I'm you burning some currency.
Yeah, no, he was using fear quite often.
Yes.
And like he was using the engine the way that you're supposed to.
100%.
And like he was like failing at things and then just doing them again.
Yes,
because he had the fear because they were feeding it to him.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have some great rolls. And he was using that fear engine to drive the action and to make things more like tense throughout. So that was kind of cool.
One moment, a good example of that. And this is going to bounce all over the place. So like we already mentioned, full spoilers and everything. This is not going to be a retelling of the story. I'm going to put a link to the episode, they're recording down in the description. So if you haven't watched it yet, go check that out. They also have the character creation. You could find that too. But I'm going to put the link to the actual Daggerheart Critmas story down below. At one point, he uses fear to bring down a bolt of lightning. Now, not to attack the PCs or anything like that, but there is like a party split moment, and it's really just building tension or building fear.
Yeah,
which I really love that. And right after that, he did use some more fear to push combat in his his direction. But that's one of those things I think I forget about, is that fear is not just a resource to be used for more powerful abilities, or to take your turn in combat, or extra actions, move the spotlight to more of your adversaries, but being able to just do these like cinematic moments.
Yeah.
Where he could, as a GM, absolutely just be like, and a bolt of lightning comes from above. But in Daggerheart, if you work with the system and instead of, just kind of free-forming some of this stuff, that's one of those situations where I think he had been capped on fear at this point. So if you look at, your big growing pile of fear, which your players know is going to come back at them at some point.
They know it's there.
There's fear mounting. And if you're going to start using it for these cinematic moments, that's pretty rad. I think that's a really cool way to introduce these moments, especially if it's stuff you hadn't planned on.
Yeah.
just looking at your little pile of currency, like, what can I do with this to like shake things up?
Yeah, he also used countdown as a way to build tension too, which we had a downed enemy that could reform and use the countdown mechanic to be able to be all like, okay, so this is still a thing that's happening, and if left unchecked, could bite you.
Which is a really fun thing too, of the players knew as soon as he brought this up, like, oh crap, we done messed up.
Yes.
Because we made a decision to keep this thing with us. And now it's going to reform, which was already established that it, could do some things, kind of there was some reforming. Maybe they didn't realize if they had kept pieces apart that it would reform. I think they were like, oh, it'll reform if we don't bring it with us and it'll come find us, when it was the opposite.
That's the thing. It's an interesting conundrum to run into, because they were fighting a scarecrow and all the basically sticks got scattered.
Yeah.
So they, instead of leaving them, they gathered up the bundles and took them with.
Yes.
So then I can see both sides of the players wanting to do this, because one, it's, the devil because if you left it all, you don't know when it's going to come back if it reforms. You can't stop it from reforming. If you bring it with you, it's a more controlled environment. You can stop it if it tries to reform, if you remember and you're paying attention, which they did not. Or if it does, you're ready, because it's a controlled environment. You know where it is, and you might be able to do something else with it.
True.
And I like that. I like it's an interesting, way to show that, and basically use that countdown as like a thing that, can add tension, because you don't know, you know when it's going to happen, that it's definitely coming. How are you going to handle it when it does come?
Yeah. And I appreciate that the players, and granted, these are all professional players at this point. Like, this is what they do for a living other than the voice acting, which is, this is not just voice acting with dice. Them knowing that, oh crap, we messed up, this is going to happen, there's a countdown die, and not metagaming to where like, we should go bury these twigs somewhere, y'all. Yeah. Like, no, they're like, oh, well, we goofed. Let's, we know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. It'll happen when it happens. And they just roll with it, and then did forget about it.
Yeah. No, there's some interesting stuff that did happen in this game too, when we talk about Daggerheart mechanics, and watching people play it again. And again, we're dealing with professional players that know what they're doing, and they kind of know how to showcase the mechanics. But it didn't feel inauthentic, and what I'm getting at here is the lack of initiative.
Literally.
So there is no initiative in Daggerheart, right? Unless you play like that. But the default rule set includes not using initiative, and basically the player is trying to decide who does what, and then kind of depending a little bit on the game master to kind of help spotlight people.
Yes, moving the spotlight around without hogging it yourself.
Without hogging it yourself and everything like that. Which, if you read a lot about people talking about Daggerheart, one of the major concerns when this was released was people that are just going to outshine everybody else at the table. And it was interesting to watch like a full-on game that was quite long too. It was over 4 hours, was it not?
4 hours, 12 minutes, something like that.
So over 4 hours of play with no initiative. And then you wonder, okay, well, is this going to be like, is it only going to work because these people know how the system works and they're going to be nice to each other and take turns and be like, oh no, you do your thing and then I'll do my thing. And it did not feel inauthentic at all. It felt very authentic the way that they were playing, because we did have instances where people took multiple turns in a row. And thematically, it made sense in that point.
Yep.
And you can kind of see how this would play out in your own home game. Like if I'm doing something on a turn that is, that is fairly important to a thing that we're trying to accomplish as a group, and I do something one turn and I fail at it. And then the play goes back to my game master, so you in this case, and then the play jumps back to our side of the table, and it might feel more imperative for me to try something else, like right off the jump, without another player getting a chance to take a turn, which, depending on the player and what's going on, maybe can feel like you're trying to hog the spotlight, and sometimes not though, because you're trying to accomplish a very specific thing, and you have the opportunity to do that in this case. Mm-hmm. And that happened a couple times in this, where somebody, it left the player's turn, went back to Matt, bounced back to the player, and that player immediately jumped in again to try and do something. Yep. And it didn't feel bad. It didn't feel bad at all. It didn't feel like they were trying to hog the spotlight. It felt very natural. Like, I don't think that was like a planned thing. Like, you know what I mean? I think it was more like, this is the human reaction and the human playing.
Absolutely.
And it, like I said, it felt very authentic. And of course, there's going to be instances where you have a bad actor, right? You have somebody at a table that might not be either comfortable with a group yet or something like that, that might throw off that balance. So the game master might have to have a little bit more work making sure to shift that spotlight to make sure that one person isn't just doing everything or one person is falling behind.
And we've discussed that before. That comes into play of, okay, and yeah, all right, cool. And I love what you just did. Carol, what are you doing right now?
What are you doing right now? Yeah. And actually, Matt did that a couple of times too. Like, he would kind of shift things over and be like, okay, well, that's cool. That's all happening right here. What's happening over here,
Bingo.
though? Like, what are you doing? And it was nice to really see it in long-term play. So we're talking, 4 hours plus play of seeing how the non-initiative system works at a full-on table. And it felt good.
There was, going back to the lightning moment and when they were starting to engage in combat there was a moment where I was listening to it alone while working, and I smiled to myself because the GM, Matt, took initiative. He started the combat, used fear, and like ran in and, did an attack. And then the players responded with their own. And I was like, oh, interesting. He's not, I was like, okay, he's taking the initiative going first, and then my D&D brain was like, all right, and then he's gonna roll initiative, and then combat will actually start, and then it like clicks, like, no, combat just is. It just is part of the game. There's no break. There's no hard line in the sand of, all right, guys, pull out the minis, pull out the maps.
Yeah, start the music.
Let's get the battle music going. Things are like, really, all right, now everybody, go ahead and roll me what we got. Don't read it to me yet. There's so many of you. Hold on, 20 to 25. That's not there. It's just especially when the GM initiates the fight. I think it's borderline even easier unless a player specifically is like, so I guess, other than someone be like, all right, well, you guys go first. And then you have the moment of, well, who's going to attack first? But if just narratively someone on one side of the table engages, right?
Engages in something,
then it just flows.
And you're right in there. It actually happened with the first fight, with the straw man, the scarecrow guy, which I wasn't sure that was going to be a fight at first. Right. So he introduces a fairy, like a witch, and she's, basically brings to life
Spirit of Christmas.
The Spirit of Christmas. She brings to life a scarecrow, and it starts going towards them. And at that point, it's not 100% explicit that she's out to kill anyone, or that she's out to start a fight. And like you said, there's no transition period there. So it was just like, okay, he's walking over, there's a scarecrow, and she's telling him to like go like talk to them or like, go handle them, but not in an aggressive, I don't remember the exact verbiage, but it wasn't like straight up like, oh, go kill them now.
Yeah.
And he starts walking towards them, and immediately Matt's like, okay, and he starts walking forward, and he's going to charge and attack. And he just went straight from, they were kind of watching things going on. They were talking, there was conversation, then all of a sudden somebody's getting a charge and somebody's getting attacked. And then it's just, okay, there's some combat happening now. And it's like you said, there wasn't a weird break in the narrative that switches everything over to combat mode, and then when the combat is over, then the music stops, and then you switch back into social mode until the next combat mode comes up, the next random encounter clicks in.
And the game still has its pillars, it has its combat, it has its social encounters, things like that, but it's just seamless between all of them. And that was really like reinforced by listening to this game. And I'm, we've done our sessions of it and stuff like that, and it's definitely been there, but a lot of our players, including us, are still learning the game, fully.
Well, you're still in that mode too.
Right. Also that, yes,
you're in that mode of like, oh,
that's how it's always been. As far as, no matter what game we're playing. Monster of the Week kind of being its own outlier where, I guess that would be the closest thing. To it, But even then, you're not rolling for, the adversaries in that game. You're just telling me what they're doing, right? So in this, if you don't engage, but I'm coming in to engage you, it's almost like a Han Solo, like, who's going to shoot first?
Yeah.
Like, okay, is this Scarecrow going to attack us? Or is this a social encounter about to happen? I don't want to jump the gun and, he's swinging at me.
Yeah, no, he's swinging. Okay, it's definitely not nice. It's definitely a fight. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and something like that makes me wonder if Taliesin had been like, I'm going to run in and swing at this thing.
Yeah.
Would he have been like, all right, yeah, go ahead.
Exactly.
You know,
yeah. No,
you beat me to it.
And that's exactly, I think, that's the interesting part. Like you said, the whole, like, what's going to happen, we don't really know.
Right.
I don't think any of them knew that it was going to immediately transition into a fight.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Taliesin probably would have ran in there and attacked, or maybe even Travis would have, jumped in and slapped it with a cymbal.
Yeah. Right. Goodness. In Dungeons and Dragons, how many times have you guys been, like, is this going to be a fight? And then I say, all right, everyone, roll initiative. And you guys all roll better than me. And even though I was probably going to engage the fight, which is why I'm like, all right, roll initiative, I'm going last.
Yeah.
And you guys just, your characters saw what was happening. So they're able to jump in quicker than I'm able to.
Heroic intuition.
Right. Where in Daggerheart, it really seems like what your heroic it's
like it all just comes down to you. Like what you're going to do. Like
what
it's not
are
a
you
role.
going to do in this
like,
moment?
Are you going to react, and are you going to misread a situation?
Bingo. Right.
And I think that's something that is interesting in this system as far as flow goes, that allows for something kind of cool and unique to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, my biggest takeaway from listening to the whole thing. Was just, it was a totally, honest to goodness, out of nowhere smirk, like, from myself. Like, it made me so happy, that realization of it just flows.
Yeah.
Like, stop putting it in a box, Tyler. Just let the game be. Just let the story happen.
I think one of my favorite things about this special in general is actually a lot less to do with the game system, period, and more the way that it is designed to be theme agnostic.
This is where I thought you were about to go, setting agnostic.
And I don't know
time period agnostic.
Exactly. I don't know if I've talked to you about this in the past. I obviously think I probably have, since you really picked up on it off the jump.
When we talked about the Beast Feast and stuff, we kind of went into it a little bit there. But like that, it really, every time we see something about this, it kind of hammers that idea home. And this, so the setting in this, for anybody that hasn't watched it, or if you're not planning on watching, or if you have watched it, is essentially, it doesn't really take place in a fantasy world. This takes place in modern world, sometime in the 80s, I believe, actually. So this is like, or 90s maybe. I think it was 80s.
It's 80s, 90s. But anyway, modern world, so not fantasy. So not high fantasy. And then it's a group of kids that all know each other to some extent, that get transformed by the spirit of Christmas, and because she is transforming the world around them. So they all basically become, holiday amalgamations of things. Yeah. And it's just really cool, because it's just that whole thing with Dungeons and Dragons. You are predisposed to think of it in a high fantasy setting, and that's just how it is. They're trying to step away from that a little bit with the newer editions, like by having stuff in the manual referencing like things for checks for using computers, like DCs for using computers and stuff like that, because technically, you can play Dungeons and Dragons in any setting that you want. You can. It can be system agnostic.
Look at
setting agnostic.
Dimension 20's Unsleeping City.
Exactly.
It's been done to, even in like, media that we're watching and stuff, like, to great effect.
Yeah, it's a great effect. But it just seems like they're really kind of focusing a little bit more spotlight on this system to make it look like, to show you that it is very easily skinned and can be incredibly versatile as far as the setting and stuff like that. And it feels a little bit closer to something like Monster of the Week, the Powered by Apocalypse systems that don't necessarily have to be high fantasy. They can be something like in a modern setting. So our Monster of the Week stuff, it all takes place in modern time, like right now time. You have things like Kids on Brooms and Kids on Bikes that are all, like not super high fantasy. They're, like
90s or Harry Potter.
90s or Harry Potter, stuff like that. Yeah. And it's just, it's kind of cool to be able to, again, see this. This is a mainline one shot that takes place in the 80s and the 90s. And it's just really neat how easily Daggerheart fills in that, like, that spot of being able to be a system that is designed to fill just the rule set for the world that you are designing that you want to play in, whether it be a one shot or a full-on campaign.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a sci-fi adventure or one shot from them before release.
Yeah,
because they're kind of touching on these, even with the Beast Feast thing. It was a short one shot, but it was a one shot showing that you can take place in a world where the monsters are food and you're going to have to hunt them to feed yourself. Or you've got what is it, the menagerie, which is very like it's fantasy, but it's got its kind of like modern take on it to everything in there. And then now this, which is just straight up, you know, within the last century, I would call modern.
Yeah,
like
we'll call modern. Yeah,
and it's really neat how are going out of their way, I think, to show that this is not locked into their typical Critical Role high fantasy.
Yeah,
and what you'd expect from them. And I mean, basically, we've almost gotten less of that than anything else so far. And they've mentioned being able to use it for sci-fi, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. But yeah, I liked that. I liked that a lot. I like when coming into this, and like when we knew as soon as the character creation started, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be cool. This is going to be a more like modern setting instead of high fantasy."
Just to give the flowers to them, Ashley Johnson, and I'll also give some to Sam Riegel. So good in this. Everyone is wonderful. Everyone did great.
Was wonderful.
Every single person did awesome.
Killing me.
Ashley, I died. Was dying
so many times.
Yep.
Ashley was on point.
The star
for 4.5 hours.
So good. Never missed.
She never missed a shot. She was just absolute perfect chef kiss the entire night.
Shout out to Sam's mom.
Yeah,
for doing the opening, the whole and stuff.
Opening, yeah,
so good.
Yeah,
amazing to see her there, doing this. Their son, she seems like a wonderful person. This is, especially with I look at it like the cancer and stuff that Sam went through. Like try to keep that as hush as they could and stuff, but then coming out about it. We live in a world where Sam made it through that okay and is out there doing all this stuff. Man, we could have like lost that man.
Yeah,
and what an amazing person and how like horrible that would have been. And it's so selfish of me to be like, oh, at least he gets to do more Critical Role, but I'm just glad he's okay.
Yeah,
and it's inspiring to see that he's out there doing this again, and it's so cool. And then having his mom out there too, and like she seems like she genuinely cares about the audience that her like son has garnered. Her son's fans.
Yeah,
she's just so genuinely like, oh my god, you're all amazing. Like that's awesome.
Yeah,
I just want to it was such a cool, like, warm.
It was just a very
event.
Yeah, exactly. It was a very warm event. It was very cool. Just like that, you can tell these people all love each other.
Yeah, right. Which is so weird.
Love being on stage with each other.
Yeah,
and it's great.
Actually, friends.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
Which I mean, if you go all the way back, like the Critical Role, like just friends hanging out playing D&D, transitioning to. You should stream this. Like, okay. And then boom.
Yeah.
Like you're talking this massive streaming empire, making games and all the like soundtracks, and was so weird. So cool though. Like how tabletop gaming and like, sure. Yeah. They're all voice actors and everything else. And that's a big like kick to it and stuff. But this is done so well for them. And like, sure, they're voice actors and improv and everything else, but they just work so well together and like bounce off of each other no matter what it is. They're doing this Christmas one shot and you got like like they go from someone making a joke that the parents are definitely swingers to Matt just being like, you know what? They're swingers now.
Yeah.
Like this is how the game is. Like you make an offhand joke and then it's just fully canon.
No, it was a very excellent setup for a story too. I liked it a lot. As we said before, it was set in modern times. There are a bunch of kids that are gathering at one of the kids' parents is like the mayor of the town.
Yes. Yep.
And that's actually Laura's parents.
Laura's dad.
Laura's dad is like the mayor, inviting everybody over for Christmas dinner. Yeah, and Sam's mom is with him now. And it was just a really cool premise that they set up for everybody to get together. And it all just works out so well.
I like that. Sorry, I keep stealing the spotlight. But, oh my goodness. Travis just wasn't in the game.
He wasn't in the game for
half an hour, 40 minutes.
It was like 30 minutes, yeah.
And it didn't even occur to me that like he wasn't talking.
He was just over there in the corner, just listening to everybody. Yeah. And everybody was doing all this stuff. And then eventually, Talison's character had to make a phone call.
He's like, "Oh, I know a guy."
Yeah,
like, no, we got this.
Yeah,
we got this. We'll do the thing. He's like, no, really, I got this. I'm gonna make a call. And I'm like, well, he's so insistent on ring ring. Travis like, hello. Like,
that's what I'm saying. I think everybody else at the table forgot Travis existed because they were all like, just don't worry about calling it. We'll figure it out. Yeah. He's like, no, I'm going to make a phone call. And they're like, no, we can figure this out. He's like, no, I'm calling someone.
Right now.
Right now.
Travis is sleeping in the corner.
Matt's all like, all right, Travis, introduce your character.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, goodness. It's so good. And it's funny. It reminds me of when he had to wait to introduce his new character in campaign 3, and he just wasn't like there on set. Yeah, he's just done this.
He's used to this. Yeah, he's very much used to this at this point.
So good though. Like, every single person's character in this was so good. And this is one of those situations where like I want more of these characters.
Oh, they're amazing.
Are they gone
characters.
Forever?
Probably.
Probably.
I mean, especially in like, because it's very Christmas themed. So essentially, if you don't plan on watching it and you want to know what happens, they each have their own characters, which are humans. And then when everything goes down, they all get changed to something else.
Yes.
And then basically what they did with this game was they just skinned over species to match Christmas themed things.
Yep.
So we had Laura Bailey. So she was playing Laura Bethany Blake. Or no, Bethany Blake is her name.
Yeah.
Who was a clank in Daggerheart, but instead it was a tree topper.
Yes.
So she was a tree topper.
She got no legs.
So she had no legs and had candlesticks for hands. Yeah. Sam played her stepbrother, which was Ralph Bader Ginsburg Blake. And instead of being a dragonborn, was a Grinch.
It's all so good.
So he was a Grinch character. Taliesin played Dylan Brewster, who would have been an orc but was a Yeti, and he was a rogue. So yeah, Laura's character, she was the Guardian Clank, so she was a Guardian class. Sam was a wizard, and Taliesin was a rogue, so he's a Yeti rogue. Ashley played Guinevere Beasley, who was a druid dwarf, but instead of a dwarf, she was a snowman. Which was so hilarious.
Good. I'm gonna roll over there like BB-8,
like BB-8, a little BB-8 snowman. Liam played Tristan Beasley, which was a satyr bard, but was Krampus.
Perfect.
Which
was so good,
so good, so good. Marisha played Riley Sloan, who was a Furbolg ranger, which was skinned as a Wendigo. So like full on skeletal deer with like Christmas lights hanging from the skull. So cool.
Richard, I have to ask you a question. Can you believe how good Rangers are in Daggerheart?
That part killed me. Rangers are really good in Daggerheart.
Yeah, right? Oh, gosh.
And then Travis, the one that came in late, was Tanner Codswallop, who was a Simia warrior, but instead of just being a regular Simia, was the giant toy symbol monkey.
So good.
With two symbols that he clashed together.
This is so fun.
Which was so fun. So they all got changed into these skins of, the species from Daggerheart.
And to those of you listening, this is a big deal. This is like the creators of this game, essentially, usual manage stuff. I know there's game designers and Spencer Stark and everything, but they're fully endorsing skin things.
Yeah, exactly.
Skin your weapons.
That's so
skin
cool.
Your characters.
Yeah, skin your characters
everything.
To fit your setting.
Be on the same page as your GM, and then your clanks and your satyrs and stuff like that. They have base balanced rules that are made for the game. Just, hey, I'm playing the satyr, but can I be a Krampus for this Christmas game we're playing? Totally, absolutely. It all just make it work. Just make everything work. And they were so good at that.
System agnostic thing.
I'm going to burn a point of my armor. So instead of it actually hitting my armor, it's gonna take away a layer of my thick chest hair.
My thick chest hair is burning away.
Yeah, exactly. You just make it work, and that's my favorite part about this system. Is it seems just rules heavy enough to guide you into like functional, balanced gameplay, but light enough that you can have these incredible like role play moments and just take the world and game and make it what you want it to be. Look at the settings, look at the frameworks.
Yeah.
You can play anywhere. Why not play anything?
Yeah, play anything. Yeah. So it's very cool how this worked. The interesting thing is this flowed so well.
So good.
So well with their play style too.
7 players, dude.
Yeah.
And
it didn't feel cramped. No. It didn't feel crowded. It didn't feel clunky.
It didn't feel like it was a cakewalk either, which is a big thing, right? Because you've got, as long as the players don't ever roll with fear or don't miss, then, the player's just going to keep swinging. Well, guess what? They do roll with fear.
Yeah.
They do miss. Because at the end of the day,
it was touch and go there for a couple of them.
Or, you know what? If they keep going, you know what? I'm going to burn a fear. It's my turn now.
Yeah.
You can just do that as the GM. And it is a balance. And I think a lot of us that are running this game are going to have to learn that balance.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely a bit of a learning curve.
You have to build up that fear, pool before you start going all in on your players, which maybe is a good thing. Maybe you're not having combat just over and over and over again. You got to build up some space, build up some tension as you increase your pool. But once you've got it there, or at least, got a bit under your belt, you can have some crazy fights. Yeah. And we saw that. We saw some touch and go.
Some pretty
I believe
crazy
Taliesin ended with 1 hit point.
Yeah.
So, hey, you can go down. And that's with 7 players.
I was really surprised that some people didn't drop. It was down to some very lucky rolls.
I did fully notice something we talked about back on the last Daggerheart update, which is armor is just extra health.
Yes, yeah.
If maybe there's some higher level stuff we haven't seen yet, and we mentioned this during our talk about with that too. But there's no reason that I've seen so far through these playtesting not always use your armor.
Yeah.
And then start burning through your health.
Your health. Yeah. Yeah. Really,
you don't want to die with armor.
Yeah, you don't want to die with armor. I think we did discuss this before. There's gotta be something that we're missing and mechanically and that we haven't seen yet.
And if they're not,
that explains that. I guarantee it.
But if there's not,
then
they are just balancing the game where your health, air quotes, just does include your armor.
Yeah.
And since armor, anyone can take any armor, you just have the negatives to your evasion or stuff like that. You're just choosing what you want your health pool to be, and based on what negatives you want in other areas.
Yeah.
So if that's how it is, that's fine. That's how it is. I am agreeing with you. I expect there to be.
I expect there's something that
some other reason why maybe you want to hold on to the armor or stuff like that, or there might be a monster or maybe that gets too complicated. But hypothetically, there might be an ability or something where, this is a rust monster.
Yeah.
And if you block it with armor, it's actually going to take away 2 armor slots.
Mm-hmm. There's going to be instances that we just don't know about.
And then at that point, you're like, ooh, I'm just going to take the hit to my health.
Yeah.
But maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're,
we'll see.
We're shooting it back and forth.
Yeah.
Theorizing. We'll know in a few months.
Yeah, no, it's not long now.
Yeah.
And which brings me to my next point there too, which is we're going to see more of Daggerheart. And they haven't officially said that the new campaign is going to be Daggerheart, but watching this and watching how well this flowed with this group, and how well it fits with their play style specifically, the way that they play the game, this just works so well for their whole scenario.
They're able to get through story, A to B, so much faster. This 4 hours was probably some of the fastest 4 hours from these players that I've listened to in a long time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because they do some long games, right? And every once in a while there's a bit of a halt while they, because they don't edit these things down for time. So you're listening through the rolls and everything, the initiatives and everything else. But with this moving so smoothly, you don't have like choice paralysis with a billion decisions, because you are always going to be limited on how many domain cards you can have, which probably allows to some more pre-planning as well. And it'll always be kind of easier where like the spellcaster isn't going to have a bajillion decisions compared to your melee fighters. They might have more. Some of the domain cards for spellcasting have a couple of options versus like, you know, a barbarian having a domain card that's like spin in a circle with your axe. But I'm expecting it to have that effect even through higher levels where everything will just kind of flow faster and be sped up. And if that means they can get through more narrative in the same time frame, maybe we'll actually, I don't mean this to be negative at all, but maybe they'll get through stories more quickly and then we can get more stories. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I think it's an important thing, and it's something that you actually see if you look at the analytics, that the last campaign hasn't done as good.
No, there's been drop-offs.
Yeah. And I think that this is going to give them a big resurgence.
Bingo.
Because, like I said, everything just feels really matched with what they're doing here. And it's almost a guarantee at this point that it's going to be Daggerheart for their next campaign. I think the only thing that would stop them would be Daggerheart not being a huge success on launch. But I don't think it's going to happen like that. I think it's going to be a very successful launch, and I think that they're going to do it.
I think even then, though, like the tail is going to be, you know, based on one, support, and two, their support.
Yeah.
Because if they're not all in on their own system, okay, maybe this is not to say Candela Obscura is not a great system, but it's not the system they're playing all the time. They did do a decent amount of episodes with it, showed they like believe in it and everything like that.
It is just weird, though, that they haven't straight up said next campaign Daggerheart.
I don't know what their contracts are like with Wizards. They do have, you know, material released on D&D Beyond and a book published by Wizards and stuff. So I don't know what they can and can't say.
Yeah.
Maybe when this one wraps up, which I assume is going to be in the next year, it's going to be in the next, you know, so many months, because when we get to Gen Con, they're going to do that premiere, like Daggerheart one shot, air quotes or whatever. And that's the one that I suspect is going to either not just be a one shot. Yeah. It's going to have characters, if not every character, going to have characters carry over to the main game of their new campaign. We'll see in like August, but you know, and that's a ways away. But I wouldn't be shocked at all.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't surprise me.
Be more shocked if they don't do that.
It is, like I said, it's just interesting, but I think you made a really good point, which is the reason why they haven't said it is probably likely due to contracts. Because they've using the systems that they're using right now and promoting and sponsored and buying all that
sponsors.
Stuff means that they probably can't, because I'd imagine there would be fall off if they were to come out and say directly, like, the next one is going to be in Daggerheart. So that's probably why they haven't said such.
If they wrap it up and, you know, the sponsorships are done.
Yeah,
and
if they wrap
else,
it up and it's done, they're probably just going to clap their hands together and be all like, hey, Daggerheart's coming.
Yeah. From now on, or at least our next campaign, which is probably how they'll phrase it, our next campaign is going to be played in our new system, Daggerheart. And people are going to be like, whoa, awesome, super cool. And they're going to see really big numbers like they always see on these Daggerheart videos. And that's going to be great for them. And if they can show that Daggerheart is a system worth investing in out the jump, you're going to have a decent amount of people get in there. Especially because the value for this $60, right? For the base?
For the base, though, yeah.
That $60 to get all those cards and the book you need.
Yeah, the book you
need. There's no Monster Manual Player Handbook, DMG. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You're just going to have your GM buy this one book, and they're going to have cards for everyone to use and player sheets and everything else. Solid.
Yeah.
Solid. And they're going to keep working with Demiplane, I assume, right? I don't know if that was confirmed. I can't remember.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. So they're going to keep working with Demiplane, which means they've got the digital assets already ready to go, loaded up. Like it's a perfect storm to push back against Dungeons and Dragons, which is, to me, their number one competitor. Which is wild if you consider that when I think who is D&D's competitor, I look at Pathfinder.
Yeah, you look at Pathfinder.
Are there other tabletop games? So many.
Yeah.
But I've never once thought Call of Cthulhu is gunning after D&D.
No, yeah, exactly. It's just a different system.
But Daggerheart, it's a different story.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about the top creators that have brought countless people to D&D, well, they're pushing their new thing. That's quite the adversary. Mm-hmm. See that was a Daggerheart insert adversary,
and that's this one shot. Just really did drive home how well this system runs.
It's so good, so easy.
It's easy, but it's got depth to it, and it just works. There was maybe one or two little things that were maybe done incorrectly.
There are definitely moments where not only the players, but also Matt seem like you can tell they haven't been playing this system for over a decade.
Yes.
Like they have been.
Like everything else. Yeah. So there was like a couple of loose ends, but overall, the general game itself, I was almost flawless. Like it just went well and it just worked. Like I said, there was just a couple little things here and there, but it's nothing game breaking, and it's nothing that doesn't happen in normal home games and Dungeons and Dragons anyway.
Bingo!
Like this is all stuff that happens in your home games. Your home games aren't perfect. I know it. Our home games aren't perfect.
What?
They just aren't.
You wound me. You wound me, Richard.
Not because of you. It's because of us most of the time.
No,
I'm always messing up rules.
Me.
I'm always messing stuff up.
No, yeah. I mean, I'd mentioned it to you as soon as I was like, I think Matt just messed up.
Yeah, but. Overall,
just roll with it.
Yeah, overall, it went so smooth.
And that's actually, I enjoy seeing them mess. I've always thought it was D&D too, but it's even better when it's a new system. This is a new system to everyone, including them. You can tell Matt works closer with Spencer Stark on making this game and stuff like that. So the players spend even less time than he does with the system. So when people are making mistakes or have questions, that just really shows you that like they are playing this game. This is not a fully scripted event.
Yeah, no.
This is not just one big old advertisement. It's an advertisement, but it's for fun. Like they're playing a game, and it just hits closer to home. It's more relatable.
Yeah. When
you see the creators of it essentially mess it up every now and then. I like that. I'm not expecting perfection.
Yeah,
I'm expecting human mistakes.
Yeah. But no, it was very impressive. Like I said, it was a really good showing for Daggerheart in general. And I was happy to see it. And it's one of those, it's interesting because it's one of those things where you look at it on paper and like I loaded it up and I was like, oh, wow, 4.5 hours. This is like watching old episodes of Critical Role. Like this is a long show. So I'm going to settle in and it's going to be long. But then you start listening to it and it's such a joy to listen to. It doesn't feel like 4.5 hours.
No, it really doesn't, which is weird to say, right?
Yeah.
It's so much time.
Yeah, it's so much time, but it's so clean and flows so well that it's just a joy to listen to, which I think bodes well for the system in general. Like you said, we didn't really see anything crazy new or crazy exciting that happened here.
Which is okay.
Bog standard, what we already kind of knew. We weren't really sure going in. We were like, oh, I wonder if they're going to sneak some extra rules in here or an ability or something completely, because we know that there's definitely rules that we probably don't know about. There's something in that book that they haven't told us about that's going to be a surprise. There's going to be stuff that, they've even said it before in interviews.
They're still holding cards.
That they're still holding stuff in that they haven't told us about. That, who knows what it could be.
Yeah.
Like we didn't really get frameworks until, more recently in the depth that we are seeing them and how they alter the game as much.
Yeah.
And that was big. And, who knows what else is going to be back in there.
They want the big splash is what it released to. They can't show us everything.
They can't show us everything. And I thought maybe we'd see something. I thought maybe we'd see a flash of something or at least a hint of something. And I don't think we did.
Yeah.
But it wasn't disappointing.
Yep.
Because it showcased the rules as they sit right now, and it showcased the game actually being played in a complete and very well formatted way. Which, what more can you ask for?
Yeah, totally agree. But thank you all for making it this far with us and listening to us ramble on about our thoughts on a game that some other people played. Yeah. To all of you celebrating New Year's, Happy New Year's, especially if you listen to this on the day of release. I hope you had a wonderful 2024, and I hope your 2025 goes even better. Thank you, everyone, for listening throughout this last year with us. We've grown a lot in this last year. We've basically gained, like, everyone. Like, I think we started off 2024 with what, like, maybe 80 subscribers, something like that. I'm just going to talk YouTube, metrics and stuff. Podcast, it's a little harder for us to track because there's so many different networks. But I mean, even Spotify and Apple, like, everything is jumping up. But we have so much interaction on YouTube, and because of Daggerheart specifically, putting out some of those videos earlier in the year, going from like 70, 80 up to like 400 and now like 550 area. It's awesome. It's huge. It's really cool to know like some of you are out there listening and checking these videos out every week. And we love talking to all you. And sometimes you hit us up with like little like bits of tidbit and stuff, like Captain Cosmo sending us some more things on the DM screen and stuff for Daggerheart. And that's super appreciated. And we love talking to all of you. And I just genuinely thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful new year. We'll see you next week. We're going to be talking about the Unearthed Arcana for D&D's Artificer and giving our thoughts on that. Mine are almost never positive when it comes to the Artificer. We'll see if that changes.
No, we've grown as a channel, but we've also grown personally, which means maybe you like Artificer now. Just like you turned on Bastions. You love them now.
None of these
are
personal
true.
growth. Yeah, these are true things.
Personal growth.
Yeah, sure. Growing a whole lot. Growing to be really interested in Daggerheart and less interested in the other ones. Though I say that I still love D&D, but Daggerheart might be for me, man. Might be for us.
We'll see.
But for now, everyone, I've been Tyler,
and I've been Richard,
and we've been True Strike. Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!
Hey, adventurers! Thanks again for joining us today. Please be sure to give us a follow on your favorite podcasting platforms and YouTube. If there's any questions you'd like to write into the show, you can hit us up on Threads, Blue Sky, or Instagram. New episodes release every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for listening to True Strike.